Today we're going to be talking about 9.6% of increase and decrease. All right, today we're learning a new formula. We've talked about a lot of different equations so far, and today I'm giving you a new one for the percent of change. All right, so the percent of change is the amount of increase or decrease over the original amount. But for the abbreviated version, I want you to go ahead and just draw a little cloud around this. P equals AOC over the original. Can anyone guess what AOC might stand for?
Amount of increase.
It's the amount of something. Look at the original equation I gave to you.
Amount of change.
The amount of change, okay? So let's say that something was $50 and it went on sale for only $10. How many dollars did it change?
Wait, what'd you say?
It was $50. It changed to only being $10. How many dollars difference or how much of a change happened? $40, okay? So it was 50, all right? And then it moved down to 10. So for that, you can real simply find out it was 50 and moved down to 10. The amount of change was what? 40. Over the original amount, it was 50, okay? So that is all you're doing right there. You're taking 40 over 50. And if you do that, your amount of change, put it in your calculators, what would it be? 4/5, but as a decimal, what would that be?
0.8.
0.8. Now I want a percent, so what do I have to do to 0.8?
Move it to the right minus
80% is your answer, okay? So let's imagine though, if it was 50 and it changed to $10, did it increase in price or did it decrease in price? Okay, so for that one, I had an 80% decrease, all right? So we're going to be going over problems exactly like that today. All right, number 1 says, identify the percent of change as an increase or a decrease, and then find the percent of change. So I just gave you guys a new formula for finding the percent of change. What is it? Okay, P equals AOC over the original. What does AOC stand for? Amount of change. All right, so every single time you're going to start off with writing the original equation there, that now we're just going to plug things in. So I'm trying to find the amount of change. My question here says, what's the percent of change from 8 to 13? All right, so I started with 8 and then I had 13. So this could be any number of things. You could say, on Monday, I had 8 students in my class, but on Tuesday, I had 13 students. So I'm trying to find the percent of change from Monday to Tuesday, from 8 to 13. How can I find the amount of change between 8 and 13?
Increase.
I have to subtract, okay? So what am I subtracting? Okay? Always put the big number first, okay, because I don't need to have a negative. I just want to know how much change there was. So there, I had 13, I have 8, okay? Over the original, what was the original amount that I had?
8.
The original, this is what it says. What is the percent of change from 8 to 13? So what did I have originally? 8, okay? So what's 13 minus 8? 5, all right? So I've got 5/8. Plug in 5/8 to your calculator. Remember, we're trying to turn this into a percent. So what do you get when you put that into your calculator? 0.625. Now, I don't want it as a decimal because I'm looking for the percent of change. So what do I do to my decimal? 2 places to the right. So what's my answer? Okay, now this was a 2-part thing. Originally it asked me, identify the percent of change as an increase or a decrease. So if I had 8 and I went to 13, did I increase or decrease? I increased. So there was a 62.5% increase. And box both of those in. Any questions on problem A? Let's do another example, problem B. This is what it says. What is the percent of change from 49 to 35? So we're going to go ahead and start with our equation that we learned at the very beginning of our lesson today. What was that? P equals AOC over the original. Tell me again, what is AOC? Okay, the amount of change. So I had 49, now I have 35. How do I find the amount of change?
49 minus 35.
Okay, 49 minus 35 over, what was the original amount that I had? This is what it says. I had from 49 to 35. So what was the original? 49. Mason, what's 49 minus 35? 14. Okay, remember you got to still keep that over the 49. Jakari, what's my decimal? Okay, so we're going to write down a few of them. 0.28571. It's saying it's repeating. I don't need to keep going, okay? So now help me out with my decimal. What do I do to it? Move it over twice. Okay, and now you just got to make sure that you're rounding. What would the 7 make the 5? Keep it a 5? You're right. Change it to a 6. So what's the answer?
28.6.
28.6. Remember, I always only want one number after the decimal. And if it had a repeating sign, like this one would have had a repeating sign, get rid of that repeating sign. I always only want one number after the decimal. So great job, Jakari. 28.6%. Now remember, it's two-part. It asks me whether it's an increase or a decrease. If I know I am going from 49 to 35, did I increase or decrease? What is it?
Decrease.
I decreased. So the percent of change is a 28.6% decrease. All right, just be careful. Make sure you remember it's a two-part thing. You want to tell me whether you increased or decreased. Now this is going to be written a little bit different. Most of your problems tonight on your homework are going to be written like this. The original amount that I had was 16. The new amount that I have is 28. Okay, you want to put the formula thing, as you called it. What is the formula thing?
P equals A, the AOC over the original.
Okay, what does AOC stand for?
Amount of change.
The amount of change. All right, Addison, keep helping me out. How do I find the amount of change? My original amount was 16, and now I have 28. Not 28 over 16. How do I find the amount of change? It doesn't say put the new over the original. It says put the amount of change over the original. Okay? We're trying to find how much it changed. So 28 minus 16 is going to tell me how much of a change there was that was in there. Okay? Then Addison, what's my original amount that it tells us? 16, okay? Guys, what's 28 minus 16?
12.
Okay, be careful. A lot of people in my first class tried to just keep it as 12, and they said, okay, that's my answer. But no, you're still doing 12 over 16. Now plug in 12 over 16 into your calculators. Okay, it's 3/4. What is that as a decimal? 0.75. Now remember, I'm wanting the percent of change, not a decimal of change, a percent of change. So what would that be? 75%. Now, if I originally had 16, but my new amount is 28, did I increase or decrease? I increased, okay? And you guys found out I increased up there by 12, but I had a 75% increase. Any questions on problem C? All right, I want you to do problem D on your own. All right, as I just walked around, I saw a lot of correct answers. There's some that were super duper close, but some were just a little bit off. So let's go ahead and go over. What is my formula for percent of change? Okay, what do I do for the amount of change?
60 minus 12.
Over 60. What's 60 minus 12?
48 over 12.
48 over 60. What did you guys get for this? 0.8, okay? So this is what I saw for some. They said 0.8 and then they just added the percent. Is that correct? No, definitely not. What do I have to do to a decimal?
Move it 2 places to the right.
2 places to the right. So what's my answer?
80%.
Okay, now, some people were a little bit confused also on the increase or decrease. If I originally had 60, to get to 12, am I increasing or decreasing?
Decrease.
It's decreasing, okay? So this is an 80% decrease. Does anyone have a question about that? All right, so this says a taco company puts 24 shells in every single box. So they've always put in 24 shells. But recently they decided to expand their box. If they are expanding their box, does that mean it's getting bigger or smaller? Expand means to get bigger. So they are no longer only going to put 24 shells into their box. They're going to put 25% more shells in their boxes. So the first thing we got to do is find out how many more they're adding to their box of 24. Does anybody know how to find how many they're going to add to that box of 24? How would I do that? Okay, you want to turn 25% to a decimal. What do you get when you do that? Okay, so you did 0.25 and you multiplied it by 24. I want you guys to put that in your calculator. Who else has already done that part? Okay, this is going to tell you how many more shells. This is going to tell you 25% more of 24. What is 25% more of 24, guys? 6, okay? So this is what it's telling me. They are putting 6 more shells into their box, but my question did not ask me how many more are they adding to it. This is what the question says. How many shells are in the new box? So how do I figure that out?
Add 24 to 6 and you get 30 shells.
All right, you had 24. They're adding 6 more. And when you do that, you do find that their new boxes are now 30 shells instead of 24 shells. Great job on that one. Who's got a question for me? Something that doesn't make sense about that one. All right, so we've got a quiz coming up on Monday, so I wanted to do a couple review questions for you. This says, use a proportion to answer the question. Do you guys remember what a proportion is? No, P times F equals is actually the percent equation. A proportion, if you remember, is 2 fractions that are set equal to each other. So like 1/2 equals 5/10. That's a proportion because it's 2 fractions that are set equal to each other. So do you guys remember what formula I gave you that was 2 fractions set equal to each other? Is over of equals P over 100. So on your quiz or anytime that you see where it says use a proportion, this is what I'm going to be looking for. Is over of equals P over 100. So now we're just going to plug our things in. Do I know what the percent is yet?
No.
I do not. Do I know what my is?
Yeah.
What's my is?
20, 50.
It's whatever comes after the word is. So look at the original problem, okay? Is 50. So I know that that's going to be my 50. Do I know my of? It's whatever number comes after the word of. So 50 over 20 equals P over 100. Now, when you're doing a proportion, we talked about 3 different ways. I do not care how you do it. A lot of people like to do cross products because cross products will work every time. So you could multiply 50 times 100. You can multiply 20 times P, okay? So that would be an easy way to do it. But there's an even easier way that will actually work this time using equivalent ratios. How do I get from a 20 to a 100? Multiply by 5. So if I do that to the bottom, I can do it to the top. What's 50 times 5? 250. All right, now, once again, it's asking me what percent, so my answer should be what? Okay, so once again, we're still going to be using a proportion to answer the question. What is my formula that I use every time that it asks me for a proportion? Is over of equals P over 100. Do I know my P?
Yes.
What is it?
15%.
15%. Okay, when I put it in here, you don't have to put the percent sign. Do I know my is?
Yes.
What is it?
60.
Okay, right there you can see 60 is. Do I know my of?
A very
x, okay? Because it says of what number, so I don't know what it is yet. We're going to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and cross multiply for this one. What should I cross multiply?
60 times 100 equals 6,000.
Equals X times 15.
Oh,
Okay, x times 15. What is 60 times 100?
6,000.
6,000 equals 15x. My whole point is to do what?
To get x by itself.
Get x by itself. So divide by 15 on both sides.
40.
400.
400.
What is it?
400 equals x.
400 equals x. Now it says 60 is 15% of what number? So should this come out as a percent or as a number?
Number.
As a number. So your answer is 400. Okay, the last and final review thing that I want to do with you today. What is the percent equation? This is something you're going to want to know for your quiz on Monday. What is the percent equation, guys? P times of equals is. All right, that's something you got to know. And for that one, you change the percent every time to a what? A decimal. Okay, great job. All right, so those review things should help you for your quiz. I want you to go ahead and write this down for me now. Your homework for tonight is just 10 problems over 9.6, pages 448 to 449.